I'm already behind.
Let's do it. Are we behind already?
Yes. I'd like to call the May 25th, 2018 special meeting to order.
Sorry, one of my guys just found a copperhead in a garage. I just need to call him right quick.
Copperhead?
Yeah, you can go ahead and open it.
Okay.
I think he thinks he has to remove it. I don't want to touch it.
First up, first I need adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we have the budget, on the agenda is budget work session fiscal year 2018-2019. Chris?
Okay, there's a couple things, minor things to add, and then I think the two things that we really didn't talk about before were the parks budget and then capital improvements. How much money you all want to put there. So I have the budget pulled up here, so as we make some changes, I can see what the numbers are and we can plug them in and see where we want to change. The budget that I sent you all on last Friday and the one that's for the public, it balances, and the reason it balances is because I put the difference, the extra revenue in that prospective acquisition cost. So that, if you look at that budget, it was 105, 187. The other thing I have to do is I plugged in the update to the salaries numbers on the payroll page as well. I plugged it into this version so that we can see what that does to the overall budget. But as far as office expenses, which is tab 11, we're going to add some extra money in there for the administrator's discretionary fund. And I just need to be sure how much you will want to do, if it's $5,000 or is it a little bit more, but this would be for things that come up during the year that weren't specifically budgeted for, but so that the administrator can move forward and take care of some things without needing to wait for the next council meeting for a budget
I
amendment.
think that's good. But 5 is probably a good number, but if they spend it and they come back and say, this is where I spend it, we need more, I think, we'd be open to it, right? We're not gonna, but I don't wanna put a whole bunch if we don't use it, you know what I mean? But
Right.
put 5, if we need more, let us know.
Yeah, and I think the idea is if it's a time-sensitive item,
Yeah,
the person doesn't have to wait on us.
yeah.
But if they manage it correctly, if there's a $3,000 item that comes up and they have 2 weeks,
Yeah.
they add it to the next meeting and they don't use their discretionary fund.
That's good.
11. It's called office. It would be at the bottom. Do you see miscellaneous other?
Oh, that's where you put
Okay,
it.
that's where I'm gonna put it.
Okay.
Those are for the miscellaneous office things that that's always been in there, an extra $500, like
Okay.
bank fees are higher or
Is
things
that
like
your
that.
slush fund, Chris?
Well, it's funny, we always thought we had one.
Now we found some other, right?
Well, we found out we had to go through you, which,
Yes, and I
that's the
think that's
problem.
some of the confusion. You have to go through the budget officer, but this would
Yeah.
allow the administrator to make the decisions without having to come to the budget officer because it's already budgeted. Perfect.
Okay, how much do we
Is
have,
this what
don't we
we're
have a discretionary for the
It was in the
person?
packet.
Bill?
No, that's the one
I don't want that to be more than.
See the data?
No.
Administrator.
It's
We'll
got a
talk
sticky
about,
on the,
no,
Okay.
Park
on the
does
paper.
not have discretionary.
Okay, then that's good then.
right here.
Park has categories like general repairs, which
Yeah, yeah.
it's up to
And she's
them
on
to choose
schedule
what
one.
goes in general
And lost
repairs.
one.
I think at least a 5,000 discretionary one time at the park,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
wasn't every,
Because we
park.
were doing a bunch of stuff,
Yeah, we just
watering,
did,
yeah,
we just
yeah,
did
yeah.
5,000,
Okay,
5,000.
okay, so I'll add that there, and then the other thing would be on the occupancy tab, which is number 10, the one right before you all.
Security.
Yeah, under security monitoring, we need to increase that, and, I'm not totally sure because we checked with ADT about increasing our security, but then the suggestion was made that we go look at CPI and see what we could get through them. As far as just upgrading the security in the building, so that one important thing would be, we can know who's coming and going from the building. Because right now, when I call ADT, they can't tell me. I mean, there's a list of codes that, we think we know all the codes, but if somebody were to inadvertently add a code so that someone else could come in the building, we would never know. We just don't have that information
Plus, I
right
would
now.
want it to be 101, 102, 103, and everybody knows your code.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I mean?
no, yeah, no, everybody picks their
Yeah,
own
there you go.
code, like at your house.
Yeah.
But this way too, it can be monitored from your
Yeah,
phone, I mean, there's all these
Yeah.
new things, so that if we get,
Yeah,
I
So you're
think,
thinking we should push that up until we know, is that what you're?
well, okay, so right now, yes, what I would recommend is that we push it up and then we can, increase it also for any other security costs that we might need, like, related to any kind of like IT, security monitoring, things like that.
and once ADT knows that we're shopping,
Yeah, that's exactly.
that they
what I was gonna say.
may throw some bonuses in there. And the thing is and, hopefully we don't have to change if it requires new equipment. But either way, I think we talked about that they would provide a lot of the stuff, but nowadays they're providing cameras. And I think that's imperative, at least on the certain locations or parking lots, we know
Especially if it's
who's.
free. Like if it comes like with the package to start up service and stuff.
Right, and that's what ADT was gonna charge us more if we wanted cameras, but again, if we call and we bounce them both against each other
Yep.
and see what we can get.
Well,
So-
and it's crazy sometimes, like Kim said, it's free now, but it's to new customers, so
Yep.
you often have to
Yeah.
cancel before you can get the.
And here's the deal also,
Which is
we
stupid.
do want, I think someone pointed out that make sure built into that is we are moving to a new location and we want that service to be without.
Transferred and
transferred.
not have to
Reinstall.
yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I'm sure we'll have to, but.
yeah.
We'll be
Well,
wired for it already, it's just a
No.
matter of, no, we'll be wired in the
Oh,
building
yeah,
for
but
it.
it's not hardwired, it's all wireless. Oh, we may need wireless for that.
We'll still have like structured wiring like your houses have,
Right.
I'm assuming, but yeah, it's all wireless.
So then do we need wireless for that monitoring?
But that's,
I don't know.
A good question, you're right. I'd like to see us not have wireless and leave a,
Because they can just cut the wire outside, it's like a joke.
yeah.
Yeah.
A wireless security system is great, but if it's dependent on a wireless system that we'd like to move away from.
That's what I'm
That's
thinking.
not good,
Yeah, I don't know.
But right
how
now,
that
you
works.
just want a number, right? We'll figure
Yeah,
out
we
that
just
out.
need, yeah, I'll get Julie, she talked to ADT last week, I'll get her on that and she'll research that for us and we'll figure that out. So, I don't know, I mean, do we put, it was $500, do we make it be $3,500? Do we make it be?
If we're lumping in additional security,
I would
Excuse
make it
me.
higher.
at least another 2,500,
at least
right?
another $2,500 plus 5 plus the extra 3,500.
Does 3,500 sound okay?
Yeah.
And then if we need to, there's always, I mean, I don't wanna spend contingency, but we could always pull it from contingency if we needed to, if it was a little
I
bit
think it'll
more.
end up being less than that, but I'd rather have more instead of us having to do a budget
Okay.
amendment.
Okay, so those were the two changes, and then, actually, let me put this in yellow so that I remember it.
I think in today's world, extra spending on security is just sort of necessary.
What you do.
Well, and I've been getting emails about some cybersecurity things through government listservs, so I think it's definitely a hot topic right now.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so then the
The
next,
Russians are watching.
Yeah.
Come on.
so then another thing that Ron had asked about last time was park operations.
They're just gonna be Joe's too.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Because you have to read it to them.
No, because I wanted to hand it to him. I mean, I will if you want me to.
Baby steps. I was up late last night. I couldn't get one. Yeah.
Okay, so, I did analyze this and, if you look at this year, which is the top section, FY18 costs compared to last year. And what I did last year is I assumed, even though Derek worked 6 months in last year, I assumed that we would have had a contract for the whole year, so I pulled that, I made that change. So it is costing more to have the park manager on staff as it would be as if we just paid somebody the flat fee to do grounds maintenance. But down below, I gave you all some comments about things that were benefits that we're getting by having that staff person that we didn't have before.
Like working on the Amber Meadows Trail, which is awesome feedback. Did he copy everybody on that?
I got it.
I know you got
I got
it.
it.
Did everybody else get it? What do
maybe
you find
not.
out? Oh, he,
I
yeah.
don't.
Amber Meadows is gonna, I think, step up and do a better,
Redo
much
the
better fix than they had originally
Good.
indicated, so
Good.
that's really good.
The park does look great. I was just out there Wednesday morning, walking the dog. Looks great.
Yeah, so is that, even like the bathrooms always seem to be in, I mean, and I don't know if that's something we had contracted in the past and they just come in when
No, I
they're.
think our part-time people did that always in
Okay.
the past.
It's
but-
Joe, to your point, we did used to contract that stuff out, but then as we got more people, because now we have like, what, three part-time, 2 part-timers and a
We
full-timer?
have 2 part-timers, a full-timer, a seasonal for during the summer when we.
So we got a lot
And
of
then,
hours.
so the value of that manager that we're hiring, he's also scheduling to make sure someone always has
Yes.
coverage there.
He does the schedule, he's up there making sure that the people work their scheduled hours. which-
And we didn't need that in the past because Lanny did it on his own, you know, quite frankly. He did it,
You know,
pro
and-
bono.
And you know, Derek's cutting back his hours, and we're gonna hire a part-time person to cover those hours plus a little bit more, but that person will be less and won't have benefits, so that'll be a little bit of savings there next year. And we actually advertised for that, and I'll tell you that we did get 1 reply so far, and it was through, I sent the ad over to the athletic director at the high school, and one of his coaches submitted his application, which would be perfect. And Derek's already met with him,
Okay.
and he's going to have him shadow him next week and up at the park and see if it's really what he thinks he would want to do.
Cool. Well, and I noticed that the park expenses went down this year, but the revenue was up, so that's good.
Yeah, we haven't had to increase park expenses in a couple of years. I mean, our budget has stayed the same. We've always been doing a good job of working within that budget.
Do we get busier over the summer in the sense that it makes sense to even look at some high school kids to hire?
Well, that's the seasonal person we have in the summer, is a high
Okay.
school kid.
Oh, they are high school.
Mhm.
Okay.
We've always hired summer seasonal people. This past year, we've used 1 person, and it's worked out well. It's pretty much like May. This person plays a sport, so when their sport ends, so it's kind of like mid-May through mid-September.
Okay, good.
That's great.
I think the reality is expenses are always gonna go up no matter what we do, right? So, we're not gonna see them come down. Where we can challenge, Derek, is how do we help with revenue, streams in the future? I don't have the answer, but I'm just saying we should always be challenging, the group to, how do we get more revenue in to offset that? And I
We
think
need
as
to
long as
maybe
we do that, I think-
advertise the park as like an event place for,
We've had those talks in the past, and definitely.
I don't know why we're not doing
Weddings. and
a
things like
limited farmer's market there and just announce it on the street and they have the areas where you can pull in and everyone knows that they
In the
go
back,
there, they're
right
gonna,
in
in
the
the
back, where
back,
the
parking
houses
and
are.
just see how it
Yeah.
goes, I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, we're gonna get one anyway, so why not,
start trying it out and see.
Yeah.
and maybe,
Learn from
Where the
it.
house was, or
Yeah.
where we had the corral at the time when we did the matters there.
Yeah.
if that's every weekend on a, over the summer,
Yeah.
spring through the fall,
Yeah.
That's
that's
a
I
big
think a
draw.
serious generator.
So how do we, then we have to come up with, what am I gonna charge you to bring your truck in, or you?
Well, Parks and Greenways and Derek, I would think bring us.
I think put that on PRG.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
can
do
find
that.
out what other farmers markets.
Because
charge.
most of them right now, we don't have to put any, we don't have to build anything, and if we
Right.
do have to build something, get the Boy Scouts to build simple little, or stands or whatever. Most of these guys do it out of the back of their truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they bring their own tent, I think, and things like that, and it's shady back there, isn't it?
Where I grew up in
Yeah.
Southern California, flea markets were huge, farmers markets were really huge. Everyone brought their own tarp. Of course, it didn't rain out there,
There's one for the
but you
side.
needed it for the shade.
But limited, and
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it, signups if they want to commit to the whole summer,
That's a great
boom.
idea.
That is a great idea. Okay,
Bob is looking at.
Hey, I'm
fee
that's,
schedule.
I'm done.
You're done.
Yes.
That was your one good idea for the day.
End on a high note, right?
We are relooking, Nick is right, we are relooking at the fee schedule. I've had Nancy start working on that, and she's done some research on that. We just haven't had a chance to regroup and see, but that'll come back to you guys, maybe not for May 31st, maybe for June 12th.
Fine.
But yeah, we are looking at increasing fees a little there.
Good.
Okay, so that was the park analysis that I did for you all. What we didn't talk about was the rest of the park budget, and I don't know, which is on page 20. There's
Is that scheduled 20?
schedule 20, yes,
The very last page.
Before you leave this,
yes.
any feedback on ordinance? That part, because remember, it was supposed to be 25% of the jobs to enforce ordinances, and 75% was park.
Right.
So how, are we getting our bang for buck on that 25? Like now, I don't
Yes.
expect them to do a whole lot of ordinances, like the park. But in the winter months, in December and January, that's when we should.
Yes, and so what had been talked about before was that you all didn't necessarily want him on a regular basis to be driving around, but as he drives back and forth and runs errands for the park and things like that, he's driving around and he's constantly looking for things. So he will see things, he's pulling signs all the time. And then there's oftentimes when Kelly needs him to go, we get a call in the office or she needs him to go look at something, he goes out there and takes a look at that. So he's doing it on an as-needed basis.
I don't want to knock on doors and, knock
Right.
on next door and want to look in his backyard to see when he put that pole in, that. But to your point, if there's a hole being dug
Yes.
and he comes in and says, hey, Cal, did we get a permit for next fall? You know what I mean?
And
Like,
he is
that's
doing
fine.
that. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
doing
okay.
that.
Good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he's responded to any complaints that we get.
Yes, if we get complaints, we call Derek and
Okay.
send him out. And he helps Kelly look at the code and decide things.
Yeah, I think that's his priority. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we gotta get out. If people call, we gotta get out.
Right, and that's the nice thing about having
Not
this.
be a week or 2 weeks before we get out there.
Right.
Right, which is why the staff person is nice versus contracting it. Because one thing I heard from a nearby municipality was they don't pull signs on weekends because they don't have their contractor person working on weekends.
Right.
Whereas Derek, Derek's schedule is flexible enough that sometimes his hours
Yeah.
are on the weekends.
We got some of the strictest ordinances in North Carolina, but through the last 20 years, we haven't been good at enforcing ordinances, and that, so if you don't enforce them, it
What's
comes a
the point of
joke. So
having
we just
them?
gotta do a better job of that, so that's all. Okay, I think we're done.
Okay, so with regard to park, pretty much honestly, what Derek and I did this year as we managed this, is he knew what the budget was, and this was something we had developed. The budget that you all approve is just the bottom line. This schedule that we use here is used for him to be
What
able
number is
to
it? Sorry.
pay 20.
Thank you.
So
This is
last
what
page.
he uses to manage his work on a day-to-day basis. And so we have, during this year, he's had to come to me and say, hey, I need, we need to, call the tree service, and I don't have any more money in the line the budget line that we would have used for tree service, and then we look at other places in the budget and see where we can move funds around. So we've been able to accomplish everything he feels needs to be done out there without having to ask for more money. We've just moved things around.
Do you think that we need to increase the gas since the national average is now $2.96 and it's like $2.65 in South Carolina?
No, because honestly, he didn't use all his budget last year in gas.
Perfect then.
In fact, he said to me, are you sure this is all I spent?
Okay, good.
Because he said, I feel like I always go to the gas station, but it just doesn't add up.
Okay.
How short was he this year of his budget?
He wasn't short at all, overall.
Well, I mean, I'm
How
saying.
much did he have left over?
I said that wrong.
I don't remember.
He was under budget. is
He was
what
under
said.
budget in gas.
Couple
yeah.
thousand, I mean, overall.
Oh, overall?
No, it's only $1,200 total.
Oh, no, he's
Couple
he's
hundred?
slightly under budget as of the last time, like May 15th, he was slightly a couple $1,000s under budget.
Okay.
But then, we'll still have a few expenses.
So overall, he's managed it well.
Oh, yeah, he's not gonna be over budget at all. He's gonna be just right about
Good.
there.
Okay.
And we can, decide on projects and things. And for example, like he thought that they were gonna be able to stain the playground equipment in-house, power wash and stain it.
Yeah.
They started and they were like, okay, this'll take us, way too much time. So they ended up paying somebody to do it.
Is it fairer to Derek to pay mileage instead of just paying for gas?
You mean gas for him personally?
Yeah, isn't, this
This
is,
gas,
Yeah.
no,
Probably,
this
that's
gas
probably
is
for
for
like the
equipment.
For
lawnmower.
your lawnmower or something, no matter
Honestly,
grass. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Robert, that's sort of an interesting point, and I don't know how you want to consider this. I mean, Derek is using his own vehicle and he uses it all the time. He maybe one time has turned in mileage way at the beginning, and after that he was just like, I can't track this, it's just too hard. And
There's actually an app that does it very easily.
Yeah.
to
Oh,
do
there's
that.
an app?
Yeah.
finally someone came out with one, because I hated doing it.
Yeah.
Oh.
So as long as
he's-
anytime he gets on the car, he just hits that app and it'll track everything for him.
So
If he's
he's-
starting work, boom, and then when he's done with the work, boom.
Yeah. Beginning and end of day, quite frankly. Tell him, I mean, that would be the easiest solution, Chris, but I see your point and where you're going, because we talked about this before, is eventually we're gonna get there. I mean, if we do, as soon as you put a shovel to something we're just gonna create more, and whether it's hauling a tractor, not everybody we're gonna get. If Derek leaves, goes on to something else, they may not have a truck
A
and
truck,
stuff.
right. And I was wondering more of whether, I don't know if I've not had this I've not personally had this before, but maybe somebody else has, maybe you have. Do you ever get like just a flat allowance?
Yep.
Any
Okay.
builder I've
that-
ever worked for did that, because they don't wanna own the depreciating asset. They don't want the responsibility, the liability. So we would get, and I've worked for 3 local builders, we would get an allowance, and it varied, it depended on the builder. We got more if we put their name on the truck. If you put the
For
sticker
advertising.
of them on the truck, you got more.
And I can assure you, his insurance company that he's paying is only thinking he's going to work, that he's not using it at the thing.
Right.
So where's that?
It doesn't actually, I checked in, it didn't actually change anything. It was,
For him.
they care about how many miles
Miles,
you're
for example,
driving.
miles, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd
they
be
don't
curious what
care
he-
what you're using it for.
Put on his truck.
Because I had to, each builder I had to provide copies of my insurance, and one of them I had to name them as additional
Additional.
insured, which I'm not saying he would have to do. for us,
Technically, we
but-
get a big sticker, put it on the side of this thing, he can probably write that off in
Well,
his
no,
taxes or
because
no?
he's a employee, so he
Oh.
can't.
Okay,
um,
that's,
Especially if you reimburse them, so we can deduct it then.
I mean, if we bought a vehicle and put,
Yeah,
the Village of Marvin,
Well, that's
then
where I was
don't
headed with
you?
that. I think she was headed towards a truck allowance.
I was headed toward an
Buying a
allowance.
truck
Yeah,
is
yeah.
kind of a mess.
Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but a truck allowance, to Joe's point, we reached the point of, we're gonna reach the point at some level where either Derek's truck is insufficient, we got, if Derek runs part-time and someone else is responsible for driving a truck.
you at
we
least
could
need
do
a
that.
hitch to carry the trailer, to carry whatever you're gonna take,
Right.
tractor.
But that's
and
where
all
we
that
should
stuff.
do, if it gets to that point, we look at the math again, because if we're hauling equipment, we're probably better off subbing. Like, I think it's great that we're paying Long Group to do maintenance at Tullamore, because I don't think Derek should be hauling a lawnmower
Right.
over there every
I
week.
agree.
And I don't think we need the liability of
Or
Derek
here.
hauling a lawnmower
Or here.
or here.
Right, which actually brings up sort of another point. The, well, actually, this is under a different topic, so let's keep talking about this. Actually,
So
my-
Sunday, yeah, but I don't know that we need to put it, especially if he's dropping down this fall in hours, I don't know that we need to put a truck allowance in. I would recommend the app that Joe mentioned,
okay.
because I'd like to see him reimburse fairly, and see how that works for him, and see what the numbers look like.
Okay.
And actually
If
says,
it's
I
small,
mean, he
it's not a
can,
big thing, but if it's a lot, I think we
and
should.
Chris, he can start that today. I
Well,
mean,
he can, because
literally,
we
yeah.
have a mileage allowance.
Right.
Budget item, and I keep reminding him, and he just like.
But what I'm saying is, you give him a phone call, I don't know what the app is, but it's probably easy to find, he can start that.
What is it now that he rate per mile?
55?
It's like about 55.
I
That's
think.
pretty
I
good.
think, yeah, it's a lot of money.
And that's supposed to include
Yeah.
gas and maintenance and all
Yeah.
that for him and
Right,
I mean,
stuff.
he
It
could
can make the
probably.
job,
I bet you that
Yeah.
adds a couple $1,000s to his annual.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
would
he could
expect,
probably
yeah.
guesstimate how many times he drives back and forth every day and just come
Yeah.
up with an estimate, track it for like the month of
'Cause if
June
he-
and
yeah.
then just assume that that was the whole year.
One diversion to go through a neighborhood to come to work, I mean, it's there, I guarantee you.
Just a
Okay.
few years ago, we could have given him his own house on the park, and remember? We
Yeah.
could live at the top of the park.
They came with a hat,
Same with that.
yeah, and a
And a
Smokey
guest
the
room-
Bear.
a guest room for Lanny.
I know.
Okay,
You
so
produce this.
I'll encourage him to get the app and we'll encourage him to submit his mileage and
One
things.
thing, just keep in mind, the Tullamore, the maintenance, we're spending $1,500. It's not much, but we gotta be careful, we're not adding a bunch of, as we do new HOA or trails and stuff. If we start adding a bunch of them here, we're gonna be in trouble long range, that's all, just keep.
Yes, and we'll talk.
I mean, this group needs to think when we're approving, developments that we're not responsible for
Oh, yeah.
for this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This one slipped by us,
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, like the loop
yeah,
around Marvin Creek,
yeah.
we're not supposed to maintain that. Someone else does, I don't know if it's the HOA or.
Very true.
Yeah, but then we lost that piece on a couple other ones, you know what I mean, and now we're doing it, and
So you're right,
it's real expensive.
we need to be careful. I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it, that community gets the lion's share of the benefit of it, and they're going into it being sold by Toll Brothers if you're gonna have this trail. So the maintenance should be on them.
So is that the same for, I know Amber Meadows' issue is they're looking at improving that we're not gonna discuss necessarily today, but is that supposed to be maintained by Amber Meadows or same thing?
I don't know, I believe it would be maintained by us, but we need to look into that more because honestly, well, we're sort of skipping ahead. I had this in a different part of the budget, but I'll go over it now. We got a quote from the Long Group about just maintaining that Tullamore Trail because when, ever since all the rain and the weeds are starting to grow up and infringe, and so we got a quote to spray and to weed eat, and it was gonna be like $400 a month, and we're like, okay, wait, this is
Just for the
way
summer
Is
too-
that the
months?
trail we walked? There's like nothing
No,
there.
no, the
Oh.
Tullamore Trail with the new.
The one off the parking
The new
lot.
aggregate?
Yeah, the new.
So-
The nice one, right?
So
Yeah.
the new
Yeah.
The one that we
aggregate.
have to take care of.
So
Yes.
$400 a month just for certain months or just
Well, that's what
for
we have.
annual?
You know what, this came in late, like before Derek went out of town, so we need to talk, he and I exchanged a message that, okay, this is way out of our budget, we need to talk about this and figure out whether we send our own staff person over instead, or whether we can pare back on what they were, if they were thinking it was 12 months of the year, you're right, we may not need 12 months of the year. So we're just not sure, but honestly, we kind of had that in our capital projects budget, where we were budgeting for that in the looping trail maintenance area, so we don't have to come up with a number exactly today.
That's the
But
type of
that's
stuff I
something
would
we're
hope our
investigating.
staff can do. They don't have to take equipment, it's a spray thing and they can go and do that, you know what
Well,
I mean?
and that's what
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about, is
Yeah.
whether we have the capacity to go over there and how often it would need to be done.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we already have a PRG person who volunteered to go walk it every month just to make sure there's not big branches that are falling down or safety issues, but this would just be routine maintenance.
Can we buy that person a backpack sprayer and as they walk the trail?
What part of the Marvin Creek
No,
Trail?
because they have
It's
to
the
be,
Tullamore, you know
They
where
have
the
to
I'm saying,
looping,
but
have a
Marvin Creek,
certificate
Marvin
to spray it.
Creek, we maintain.
we don't maintain any of Marvin Creek.
I was using that as the example.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
think we maintain.
No, I was reinforcing his point that there's a lot of other places that we don't maintain, but we have trails in.
But to Barbie's point, and I did get this confirmed, there's a lot of this stuff, that kind of maintenance, especially if it's spraying chemicals, you have to be certified to do it.
and if the other staff members are not certified, they can't do it.
Yes, Derek got certified, I don't know about the others, I think he's worked on that. So back to this park budget. So the thought that Derek and I had was that we would leave the bottom line number the same, and that he would manage within that budget, and that if there was anything extraordinary this year, we would come back to you. But for the time being, that this looked like it would be sufficient for next year. The one thing that I wanted to talk to you all about, though, as part of this, was Derek had some ideas as far as some improvements up at the park. And last year, we had budgeted $10,000 for large equipment and building capital spending. And we never really did anything with that money this year. There really wasn't a strong need to do anything up there. I think I mentioned to Ron one day when I was talking with him, Derek's had this idea, and he's had it based on some comments back from residents, is that we need a toddler playground up there. A lower something, not the wooden, you know, where people can get splinters, but a plastic kind of thing that they make for the age group that would be younger than what our playground is certified for, because our playground is certified for older kids. And so he started looking into that, and we haven't gotten the quotes back yet. Had hoped they would be back by next Thursday, and then when we scheduled this meeting, they're just not here yet. We think it's probably gonna be in the $10,000 to $20,000 range to do that. The idea that we talked about, I met one of the contractors up there with Derek, and we talked about putting it in that area where the tire swings are right now, under the trees where it's kind of flat.
And the benches are closer.
And possibly even putting a little fence around it. Derek mentioned one day he was up there and some little kid had wandered off from the other playground and the moms were talking, and he was like thinking that a fence around like a, you know, for ages like 2 to 3 would be good so they don't go wandering off. And then it's still close enough to the other playground that the moms can watch both sets and dads can watch both sets of kids.
It's a neat idea.
So I don't know what you all
What did-
think about
Did
that.
Parks and Greenways talk about it?
I think they have talked about it briefly. They have another meeting coming up on June 5th. I
Have
think
them rank what, you know, again, this should be capital improvements, should be, this is our 5-year plan. We're looking at little thing here, little thing here. You know, where you're placing your things in the park instead of one-offs, right? So I would like to have them step back and say, we think we need a small playground here. We'd like to do the farmer's market here. So, you know, how do you use the whole park instead of just that one area right now, which is where we're at, right? Everybody's just using it.
that middle
So,
section.
yeah, it's 27 acres and we're using probably 3. You know, right around.
Right in the
Yeah,
middle
yeah,
section.
Yeah,
Okay, I know Derek has some ideas. He was telling me about the making some improvements to the trail as well. That would encourage more things going on around there. He's had some ideas about doing some things in the woods, like getting some of those climbing rocks,
Yeah, that'd be
climbing
good.
things, and
Yeah,
you could clear
yeah,
out some
yeah.
other sections to put those on.
that'd be good.
Yeah, so I'll ask him to create
Climbing
a list.
rocks.
Yeah, you can literally buy these
Walls.
climbing things that are like fake rocks and stuff that apparently kids love to climb all over, and you could like put them in a clearing in the woods and they think they're rock climbing.
They're climbing in the woods.
Yeah, they're climbing in the woods.
They're really in the
Okay,
woods.
so ask him to create a 5-year plan, rank them, and try to use more of the whole park. So for now, can we leave the $10,000 in there? But my question would be
We
the
should put more,
leftover.
maybe, you know, again, I think it's something you invest in, whether we use it or not, but maybe we put another 5.
In
Yeah,
next
if we
year's
don't use
budget?
it, yes, you got 15. Not to say we're gonna use all 15, but at least you're starting to build up a.
Well, especially since we didn't use any this year.
Well,
Yeah,
So, okay, and building up the fund is sort of a, I don't remember if we got to look at the, oh, where is it? With the fund balance,
Yeah.
the other day or not, but I had added
capital.
a new fund balance category
Okay.
for park improvements,
Good.
including playground replacement.
Okay.
And in my projection, I was trying to get up to $150,000 over 3 years. And that would be to replace the existing structure. We talked to the one guy who was out there the other day, and he said that would be about an $80,000 project
That's about right, if I remember correctly.
to
Yeah.
replace that.
What's it called? The swings and the.
The playground.
Yeah.
So I guess one thing we could say is that any capital spending that he doesn't do with this year's money, we would add into that fund balance, and then if it does turn out that, let's say we decide to do a toddler playground next year, and you guys have 15,000 in next year's budget, but we need a little bit more, we could pull it out of that fund balance category. If we say that,
How much is in there now?
That makes
the fund
sense.
balance category, nothing.
Okay.
We would be adding to that after we see
From
what
the,
this
from
year's
the other,
surplus
okay,
is.
I got it.
This would be our first year.
Okay.
And that's what we talked about, we wanted roads, and we wanted this, where we can put money and squirrel away for major projects down the line, yeah.
Squirrel it away.
So do
Well,
you
in the
all,
past, you didn't use it, it went away.
are you all comfortable then with putting 15 in that park capital spending for next year and
I am.
see? Okay.
If we want the park to be more of a revenue generator, then we need to continue to add to it.
Invest, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Derek talks to people when he's up there all the time, and he said, you know, there's people up there just about every day.
Good.
Good.
Have we ever thought about looking into hiring or contracting with a wedding type planner that is available to someone? I'm thinking about generating revenue. So most people are coming in, getting a permit, buying the thing, and then they go do their own thing.
Yeah.
If we had someone
Packages.
that actually, I mean, it's their deal. Maybe it's a public-private partnership, but whatever. If that's what they do, then it's like, boom, here's the deal. Here's the price, and here's what we give you. If the person wants to add more, but it may make it easier to generate that revenue. I don't know, just thinking out of the
I
box.
can ask somebody to, we can.
There's got to be
investigate
someone who
that.
does this. I'm sure there is a wedding plan. There are wedding planners out there, but if they
Oh,
knew,
yeah.
We have a
then
venue.
we reach out to them, maybe put out a thing and say,
Maybe
look,
they
we
can
want to
create a
we want
package.
to work,
Yeah.
coordinate with you and generate more revenues. You get a cut, we get that, but we're providing the venue. It's their,
The wedding photographers that come in and get the park passes, they may know, like they may have
Somebody.
wedding planners.
we
that
just
they-
need to
they're
promote it.
working
We
with
need to
them.
promote
I
it
know
from that end
several
because the wedding planner who gets the wedding people, I mean, they're like, hey, what have you thought about this? And
Right.
and boom, they're.
So do we open that up? I think you're onto something. Do you open it up and say, we're going to take the best two, wedding planners of the world, come to us and we'll put you on our list? Because
Oh,
10
yeah.
people might want it and we don't give him a chance. So
Right.
we, you know what I mean? We need to interview and say, these are the two we're using for this year and here's the packages they offer. And, if you're giving me 20% and she's only giving me 5%, I'm probably going to take the 20% one, so we
I don't know. It's just
No,
that,
those are good
that they
ideas.
probably don't even know it's available, and then that person,
Yeah,
husband and wife to be,
Right.
are sitting there going, "Wow, it becomes a much more thing." But if we have it, reverse it, and saying, "Hey, I can offer you this, and I have access to the
Yeah.
village," but
No, that's a great idea. I will say, I think there have been a couple weddings up there.
Yes.
We got a call recently and the person was disappointed because, we didn't close the park, that there would be public around.
Well,
That was-
and one I've gotten, or a couple I've gotten, is the first question they ask is it air conditioning? And is there a place for the bride to change and the wedding party to change? So that might be something that you might want to consider if you're going to open it up as a venue.
let's not necessarily get
Yeah.
hung up on weddings.
Yeah.
Let's call it an
Okay.
event planner
yeah.
that we hire that
It
says.
could be a family reunion. It could
be anything that
birthday parties.
Yeah, there you go. A lot easier.
Yeah, birthday parties.
Event
I'm
venue.
shocked that we
So
don't
an
have more
event
people birthday
venue.
parties. here.
Event venue, event coordinator that.
And you
You know.
touched on the one, on the only concern I would have, you touched on it, does the park get closed down? It's for residents.
We tell them
shouldn't
no.
be closing it
Yeah.
down.
I agree. So maybe we
I don't
can
know, I
rope
feel
off
like
this
if you
side.
pay enough and you've got X, I think it's like if it's X number of people and they're paying enough, it's closed for the afternoon.
But on the other hand, I've gone to some of the parks up in Mecklenburg, some of the bigger ones I can remember being up there, and they have big pavilions, and you see there's something going on in that pavilion, but the rest of the park is
Yeah.
used by the public.
Yeah.
It's
So-
27
I
acres,
think
so
it's
you can
just
go
what
in the
you
back,
buy
you know what I mean?
into.
Yeah,
But
for
I can't
pictures
go
and all
here.
that, you
Yeah, I know,
go
I
over
know.
by the lake and
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
for the event and
Right,
stuff,
yeah,
I mean.
yeah.
I know we said that in New York in the parks, they could rent a pavilion and rent, basically had that area.
At the end of the day,
Yeah, yeah.
you can do, and I'll pay the money, you can do what Firethorn does and put the little gazebo where they can actually get married
Oh, that would.
by the lake and have a little area where you
Oh.
provide, that has a
See people
backdrop of
fishing.
the lake. What's that?
You see people fishing.
Stop.
As long as,
Fishing.
because Barbara brought up a good point, you do too,
Yeah, over there.
as long as we're not spending 20 grand to earn 700.
Well, I think it's just we're looking at generating more funds, and if someone looks at that, and there's a event coordinator that handles all, a handler, if you will, but then you have, I can't see you spend. I mean, you can't spend a couple $1,000s on a nice gazebo, but if you create in that area where the old house was, an area where it just a nice little chapel with roses around
Yeah,
it and
yeah.
stuff
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's it all of a sudden becomes a destination that we offer, so.
That may be something, Joe's on another thing here, maybe we send something out to the community and just say, we're looking to build a gazebo, does anyone have any experience in that?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and somebody maybe can help us.
What if the Boy Scouts?
I think that may be a little
Too
bigger than
much?
that.
Yeah, usually, I mean, I know when
It may be like a whole,
we
like,
did it, I still didn't like what they
Dig
did.
project, truth project, I don't know what you call
So
it.
I still
We
don't
could
like what
build it
fire
in a
we
week.
did, it's nothing.
I mean,
Yeah.
enough guys would, there's, Canterville's got a
Well,
few
Neil-
carpenters and.
Well,
Yeah,
Neil
Neil built that
built the
one.
one in Canterfield with,
Yeah.
with my other neighbor, but he's moved.
Is it nice?
Oh, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's brilliant. They did a great job.
But if you send that out, and Neil might say, hey, you know, I'd be willing to help.
Mhm.
but that's the kind of stuff, if you create little areas like that, then you're gonna bring,
Yeah.
and
good
it's,
idea.
it's almost.
Yeah, send it out through the
Two
HOA
ideas.
President's
Two
Council.
ideas on
Two
that.
ideas,
Now
go.
you're gone.
I'm on a
Yeah, send it
roll.
out to them, you know, and then they can distribute it and say, here's what we're trying to do.
Okay, okay. Okay, so before we move on to capital, anything else in the park operations budget that you all want to see done differently? Is there anything that you'd like to see out there that we're not doing or that you'd like to see us spend money on?
I think the park looks good, and I just would encourage you guys to just keep the pencil sharp. I mean, this looks fine to me.
Okay,
I agree.
I think we need a couple more benches that are actually closer to the playground. Because I
okay.
know when I go, like, I would like to be closer. And I'm like, I gotta sit on like the little railroad ties, or I'm
And
up
do-
kind of in the
Do we have a
tree.
designated, do we have a designated
Maybe we
dog
need that.
area?
A designated what?
Dog area?
No, that's on their wish list. In fact, it's written on the little board in Derek's office back there. The
Yeah.
park.
I
the
really
dog park.
think an
I heard
area
a lot
that,
about a dog park last night.
Yes, I think,
We better be careful of liability on that one though,
is
because the
there-
dogs bite each other and are we responsible?
Isn't that like a use your own rest type thing?
Mhm,
Yeah,
it is,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
but
my
anyways,
dogs would
there's,
be like,
I mean, there used to be
"Rah,"
that area where I'm thinking is where the horses were, and that
In the
were the
back,
thing.
yeah.
I don't know if that's the best.
What's
Okay.
the park over there across from the
Okay.
baseball fields in,
Oh,
Oh, Wesley Chapel's Dogwood Park?
yeah,
they have a
dog.
dog park in there,
They
if
do
you
have
wanna
one
check
in
it
there?
out.
They do. They do.
Oh.
It's on the
Okay.
left of the pond. It's not real big. It's just fenced in with chain link, but they put it in the woods so that, you know, you've got this pretty lake with a pretty fountain and all this. You're not staring at a dog park.
Okay,
It's off to the side, but we were there a couple times walking and people were using it.
huh, there's one at Ann Springs Close Greenway, apparently, a really huge one.
What I somehow don't want to see is the visual of just a fence
Wire.
and that's, you know,
Right,
that
right.
if it is kind of secluded, hidden, that you kind of keep it out of the,
That's a bit shady for the dogs.
I'd push
Right.
that back to
Mhm.
Parks and Greenways,
Yeah.
but as far as the benches that Ken mentioned,
We can,
That's an easy
I
one.
don't
We
know, yeah, not only is it an easy one, but Lowe's, you can buy the benches now for like, I want to say $100, you just have to assemble them.
There you go.
Everything's pre-cut.
Make that part.
okay, yeah, I'll
Next
They're not the huge ones.
Yeah,
They don't
They're
need to be,
medium
but
size.
just like, I know, like, for me, like, I don't wanna be like up the hill and,
Mhm.
especially cause, you know, Jason usually
Hey,
has to talk to me
we-
while
we-
he's playing and.
that that shouldn't even get a cost. I mean, put out something that says, you know, if a person wants to donate a bench to the park and stuff, they get a little
Yeah.
Put their
plaque.
plaque-
They get
We
a
have
plaque
some of
on
them. We
it.
have some of them already.
Yeah, you
You
put a
guys
plaque
did
on
that
it and they
before.
build it,
Yeah,
and then the Boy
yeah,
Scouts
yeah,
assemble
yeah,
it
yeah.
if there is
Yeah.
something out there. So
okay,
Yeah.
well, we.
donated by so and
But you
so.
gotta make it easy for them, saying, hey, we have these benches that available for purchase if you'd like to donate them.
Even if you sent it to the HOAs, Weddington Chase, you know what I mean?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Your neighborhood, $100 is nothing for a bench from these guys, right?
Yeah, just so you know, you're not getting out of that buff
$10.
I don't know. Okay, no, those are all great ideas, okay?
Okay.
So I think we're good on park.
So we're good on parks, so,
Okay.
Sit on parks.
what that does then, when I go back to my front page, I don't need it
You need
right
this?
here. No, no, I have it here, thank you. Okay, so what we've done is, we've added, and I changed like I said, I changed the payroll budget based on,
Can't project it.
yes, I can. Let me,
Because you're changing it on there, you can
Mhm.
see it change it basically.
How are you doing on
I didn't
time?
have that before.
I'm fine, I got an hour and 10, so,
What time you need to be out?
10:15.
Okay,
Just
about
10,
10:30 for me, so we're fine.
This is what the guys found.
Oh.
And I had told them not to kill snakes. This-
Oh,
this
did you
is
tell
out
him to
of-
kill that one?
I said that one you should
Jeez.
kill.
It's in your car.
In somebody's garage or your garage?
My garage at Elysian Field.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
Yeah, don't kill the black snakes, but kill
I
that
would be
thing.
killing that one.
Jesus.
Can I tell you, Wednesday night?
He's eating well back
Tuesday
there.
or Wednesday night, Michael came home from work and there was a black snake up in our crepe myrtle. Just
Nice.
perched
Yeah.
over our driveway.
Black snakes are good. You want
I
to,
know, but it was still.
I know, I don't like snakes. But
king snakes, black snakes, those are all good.
I know, I still don't like
I've
snakes.
watched a king snake eat a copperhead.
Good,
Yeah.
yay.
I've stumbled on it.
They kill other
Thing
snakes
was in
and
its
rodents.
mouth. Yeah, they're awesome.
Oh, I know, I still don't like snakes though.
Okay, so,
But the snakes will climb trees.
Look at that.
Why do you have pictures?
Oh my gosh.
wait, is that the?
I have
That's a
unusual
black snake.
interests. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's like the.
You're being nice, right? Unusual interest?
unusual interests. I like critters. Yeah, see that Nick? He's just climbing straight up a tree.
That's a long one.
That's in our driveway.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, there.
I choose
Snake
to
farm there.
believe that there are no
It's-
snakes
it's
in my
the
yard.
Crepe myrtle in the mud.
That's like gonna pounce on you.
That's what we were afraid of.
He's not gonna bother you.
They're trying to get the little chicks and eggs.
That's what somebody told me, they smell the eggs
Yeah.
in the nest, because a bird was up there too.
Yeah, they
That
circle the
mama
tree
bird.
and then they go up.
Okay, so back to the budget. The, so I
Nature
changed based on,
break.
our discussions, I had changed the bottom line number.
Where are you?
Well, it's
This is off
tab
their computer.
15.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
Got it.
sorry,
I'm here now.
payroll is
I got it.
15, there we go, payroll 15.
And then what
Oh, that's the
what do
big
these
things.
changes do to our bottom line now?
Right, so that's what I'll jump back to, what they do to our bottom line. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why this is, oh, it keeps bumping back.
When you move it, yeah, I hate that.
Okay, so now that's at a negative 44. So what I can do though is this is the number where, oh, hold on, I don't want to mix up my formulas.
Yeah, it probably is up there.
Okay.
Probably my guess.
So if I change this number to be okay, that brings it back down to 0. So what it does is in that prospective acquisition cost line, it,
Prospective acquisition.
sorry. Okay, this is the- there we go. Okay, that prospective acquisition cost, which is where we set aside money in case we're, you know, for future spending and things like that and possible land acquisition, that's this line with, now has 61,187 in that thing right here where this is.
How much do we have in that fund right now?
In that fund right now,
So it's like 700 or 800?
we have land acquisition, we have close to 365,000.
So if we have the 60 in there, we'll have 425.
400, oh,
next
that's
year.
good. I think we just gotta challenge ourselves not to let that go lower and lower, you know what I mean, to keep it close to that 10%, which was our goal.
What
You
made
know,
it?
But this year it looks like.
See,
it's
Ron, it
probably
actually went up from 55 to 90, and then before you changed it, Chris, it was showing, what, 110?
Right.
What was, what, did we push it up, or it was the formula?
No, it's a formula. So what happened is you all made changes at the last budget meeting and you cut a few things, and so
Money
based
goes
on
into
those
there.
changes, the difference dropped into there.
So in all fairness, if we're making changes in the other direction,
Yeah.
the money should come out of there, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly what happens. That number
Right,
is,
right. But just keep in mind, we don't want it to keep getting smaller and smaller, because that's your investment in the future, right? You know, to buy,
If we see an
Walkway
opportunity
or
like
anything you
we
want,
saw
yeah.
up here,
yeah,
and we wanna jump on it, that's a
Right.
down payment.
yeah, it becomes a down payment instead of whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
Exactly, that would be for like an emergency or an opportunity that arose that we weren't
and
anticipating.
we said if any given year, if we're investing in, like the town hall, it'd be a year where we do less than the 10%. Remember, we
Exactly.
did talk about that
Yes.
in the past.
But we haven't taken any out of the.
Out of that number, the last time we took a number out of there, we took it, at the end, in 2015, it was 865,000, and we took 500,000 out
Town hall.
to put toward town hall.
Right.
And you just
so
put, but
Which
you
is
put it
what
in a
it
different
was.
Yeah,
category.
yeah, right, they just parked it there.
It came
Yeah.
out of our
We haven't
savings
spent
and went
it.
into capital
Yeah.
projects.
Got it, okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
but we had been saving
We
for a
spent
capital
some of
project.
it on the.
Right, on the
architect and
pre-stuff,
stuff.
right,
Yeah.
but not, okay, I got it.
I mean,
Exactly.
as long as we're not touching that, and this could be bigger all over, I guess it's, you know, like I
Right.
said,
That's where I'm at.
So you're saying the 61,000 is what we're proposing for
To
this
save.
year,
right.
this
Yes.
fiscal year?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what, 1.1, the budget, 1.1?
1.3, I thought.
1.3?
Our total budget right now,
1.5,
it's
I
one
think you
point
said.
three.
Okay.
1.3.
Here, it's
So
one,
60s are, yeah,
One,
so it should be,
257.
at 10%, it should be about 130, right?
So we've been doing like 5% this year, that way.
Yeah, this way it's
right, so it's.
But let's just understand, you know, what I mean, it's less than we want, right? So, you know, as we move forward, we don't want to make this the regular thing, that, you know, we're only saving 5. Because I think we should invest, you know, it's for the future.
Well, like, if this were my money and I
Yeah.
was looking at, I think I can say it out loud, Robert's property. In theory, I'm gonna get a better deal if I've got 400 grand to plop down,
Right.
as opposed to having to wait on a loan and everything, like any other real estate deal.
Right.
So I'd like to see that number continue to grow.
Yeah, and I think everybody, I think that's, yeah, that was the goal, so, okay.
And did you all get the, part of the memo that I sent last Thursday night with the budget that explained about the zoning and why I had to bump up zoning expenses and bump up the revenue? Did that make sense to everybody? It's just strictly an accounting issue. It doesn't change the bottom line of our budget.
Because that was done from the audit company that
The
recommended.
new auditor is the one who pointed that out when they were looking through.
They
it.
found something else, didn't they, too, you mentioned, when we were talking last?
Yeah.
Another accounting thing. I thought there were 2. I'm sorry, maybe not.
Yeah, I think there were, and I can't remember what the other one was.
Something we've been doing,
No, this is the one we've been doing forever.
okay.
They
Okay.
did see 1 or 2 other minor things that they pointed out.
That's
to
always
me.
good to get another set of eyes, and say, wow, look at that, yeah, we wouldn't have seen.
But this is what's amazing, it's we've been doing it all along and nobody else caught it.
Well,
other
no,
auditor.
and part of why it stuck out to her, I will admit though, is because we've been talking about engineering costs over the past 2 years, and so in doing that, I had created some new accounts because it made it easier to track them, as opposed to constantly having to do the math to figure out the answer to your question. So I created some new accounts, and in doing the new accounts, it stuck out like a sore thumb, and she's like, what is this big offset here? And then I was
You
like,
offset,
oh,
yeah,
well, that's
yeah,
where we
yeah,
collect the money
yeah.
back from the developers that we,
Yeah.
and she's like, oh, you need to put that up in revenue. And so
Okay.
I was like, okay, it didn't
Yeah,
really
yeah,
change
yeah,
anything.
yeah,
Will you
yeah.
go back, sorry, will you go
Mhm.
back to why it went from the 100 and whatever it was to the
To
61?
110.
Is it because we were
Because of salaries.
salaries and
Everything,
like
yeah,
we
any
upped,
expense.
It was-
park stuff
Yeah,
and we,
there you go.
Up
okay.
security.
Okay.
So just now, the difference there, the 44,000 was a combination of, yes, those changes we talked about this
Okay.
morning.
So we were just
Got it.
under 10%,
Okay.
but that 44,000 is now
We're
applying.
almost
So
there.
this
I got it,
year,
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that I was,
Yeah, and we
My
can
first
look
round
each
with
other in
the
the eye
budget.
and say, hey, we're doing a town hall this year, and we talked about that, when you do a major improvement, you have
we're
less
doing
money.
town hall and we're doing a road stuff too, so. And then that's
We've
the
been
big
doing that.
bogey that
We've been
we don't
doing
even
it
know
for
yet.
years, though.
But I know there's also, we're still on the hook over here, which we don't know yet, but then this is the
We're
other.
done this
bogey.
one, right? We're not.
No, we're not done because if they have cost overruns, we're on the hook for half.
Oh, I thought it was it.
No, it's that
This
one.
one?
both.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
all of them.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
all 3.
So hopefully.
So we
But
might
while-
need that 60 over here.
While we're on that subject, and you may have mentioned it, what is our PAL? Is our PAL balance
131.
0 right now?
Oh,
You mean as far,
Did we spend
no, I budget 136, which is what we collect, what we got last year.
What do we have in the account now?
in
He wants to make sure-
Powellville.
I think
We've gotta spend
we
it
sent
on
it
5
already
years,
with
yeah.
that
Oh.
check. I
I
think.
know we sent a lot of it, I didn't know if there was
We
any
said
left.
220 for the third one, I think.
Okay,
But we get that. When do we get that in the summer?
Twice. He went
we've
get
gotten
Oh, we get it twice a
Powellville
year?
twice so far.
Yeah,
So we've gotten like about 135 twice,
right.
and that's 270, plus we've added in money from operations. Our current road budget is at $486,875.
So that, we have that money in the bank.
Yes.
Yes.
And we already spent
And we already
220 down
spent the
there.
220.
Right,
And those were way long time
and
ago.
those were a long time ago.
And you got the
Those
check
were
already
waiting.
for the match for the subdivision roads.
Yes, we already paid that,
Yes.
yes. The
So
three-
we-
Oh.
Yes, the
the-
three subdivisions.
Some of that has come out of this.
That's what I wanna know.
He wants to
What's
know,
left in
we
there.
want to get the PAL to
Okay.
0 because,
No, I don't wanna get it to zero.
We're
I wanna
close.
know what's in there to answer, Joe has a valid point that we still have a variable out here
right,
on these overruns. Which
Okay.
we,
yeah.
we know it's there.
Right.
I'm wondering what's left in PAL after you write the check for Weddington Chase and the other subdivisions.
So we haven't finished paying for
In
all of
Powell?
them?
I think,
Well, we
I think we already
Nothing.
have.
Nothing.
We're done, we already paid for
After
it.
we've written that check
Yeah.
and the
It ate it all
roads
up.
check, we used up all Powellville.
Okay, that's all.
That's where I was trying to figure out we have.
Nine,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
we want to use that first.
When-
Okay, that was a question,
Yeah,
actually,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
been on my list. We
Okay,
do
yeah.
want to use Powellville first.
Yes,
When
because the
does-
rest of it's ours, we can do, if we want to move it to
Okay.
something else, we can do.
When do we get
We can't use
Powellville?
Powellville on the intersections.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can
Any
you?
road, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
When do we get paid
Go
the
to
Powellville
State.
funds?
We get
We
it in
actually
2
confirmed
installments.
with, I thought we confirmed with AMT, but it just makes sense that it's road.
Yeah. Throw that in.
I mean, at the very least, we
Throw that in road
throw
deal.
towards the
Answer your question? I'm sorry.
loop. Oh, when, 2 installments, but when do we
Two
get them?
installments, one on September 20th and one on
October,
December.
Yeah.
Isn't it
They're both-
September and December?
Yeah,
Really?
They're fairly close.
Yeah.
They're very
Yeah,
close,
yeah.
It's not like
yes.
May and December.
Right.
So it's next year's budget.
So
right,
you
You get half in
So if we-
September and half at the end of the year.
So if we don't want to touch
Yes.
anything else, and I think both Ron and Joe mentioned this a meeting or two ago, if we don't want to touch anything else on the budget, we're gonna have to take those PAL funds that come in and we need to be prepared not to do a road improvement ourselves. I know DOT's doing 6 miles, so
Yep.
really, we've got 6 miles happening in the next year or two that we don't pay for.
Yes, well, or we may pay some for. They may not cover all of it, but they're supposed to cover most of it. But this year, in the FY19 budget that we're talking about right now, to be approved next week, you guys are adding to that bucket, you're adding another $308,000.
Isn't that nice?
From our 400?
Yes, in addition
FY19's
to that.
budget, in addition, so.
Yeah.
So our 400 will go up to 700?
Yeah.
Well, no, because
Hold on.
we spent some of it.
I just
Well,
want to make
yeah,
sure
yeah.
we have the money to pay
I
for
will
those
do-
overruns.
I will give you the analysis I will bring it, I will email it to all of you.
Yeah, and we don't need, it's not something I'm looking for today.
And the 308 is including the 136 from Powell.
Yes,
And
that's,
then the.
Oh, okay.
you know,
that will be our third PAL bill year.
Right.
Yes. So.
So you're already including that into,
Yes.
oh, got it.
So
So
in
that
quick
money's spent
numbers,
already.
Yeah.
It's
Even
not
though we haven't
really
gotten
there.
it.
in quick numbers, if we started at, what was the number I told you, 486? If we started at 486 and we spent about 150 on roads, right? It was about 150. And then we spent
336.
220 on the roundabout.
110.
But then we're adding 308 in the FY19 year.
For
The answer
18.
is.
418.
About, yeah, 424, I think I had,
Give it to.
yeah.
So,
Give or take. So we should start
Really?
July 1st, including Powellville though, assuming Powellville's coming in with 424, to your
and my
question.
recommendation is, even though we have this 5-10 year plan and we're working with AMT, we need to keep pushing DOT to do as much as they will, and we need not to overpromise residents. All right, we just did 3 subdivisions, and you've said this time and time again, but we may need to skip a year
Right.
before we hit the others, unless DOT's.
We don't know, if this comes back and it's costs us $500,000, we're skipping.
We need to be
it,
ready
too.
for it.
Right, you know, but if it doesn't, we can, you know, if it's $100,000, you got 400. you can
But
probably do it.
that's why we were talking about the bond thing, that would address that. And were you looking at paying the bond through that road fund?
Yeah.
If we did a bond?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
We have the ability to do it out of pocket if we're smart about it. As long, we just need to keep looking at it. I think.
Well, I hope
Yeah.
that we've already made the
Yeah.
good faith effort and DOT sees that, and now if they're willing, because I know they want to get rid of the road liability. They would
Yes.
turn it over tomorrow to us. And if
Yeah.
we're saying we'll accept them, you just get them up to
Right.
your own standards, and if they're able to do that, we shouldn't have to really pay.
A whole lot. We're
Right.
gonna want some crumbs, right, you know.
Right, but-
we wanna make sure before he leaves, if he's in the DOT and he's willing to give us money, I wanna make sure before he leaves, I get everything out of him.
Right.
You know, and that's
No, I
all
understand,
balancing
yeah.
act, right, guys?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah.
you all had asked us to go back to AMT after the
Yeah.
last meeting and ask for an analysis. They are working on that.
Yeah.
They hopefully may have something today that we'll talk
Yeah.
about Tuesday, but if it's not available, I mean, they
Yeah.
were juggling, they were trying to fit that in for us.
Good.
I didn't mean to sidetrack. So
Yeah.
No,
Joe
that
made
was a
good
really
point
good
about
But
it.
whatever they show us, I think we're all in agreement, these two things are a priority, the overrun. So we need to make sure
Okay.
before we do anything else, that we have enough money to cover, you know,
Well, I agree,
overruns.
'cause it's
And
just the
then we can go
unknown.
to the next level, you know, they're giving us.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so the only, I just had one other thing. So if I go back to, the Parks and Greenways trails, which I can make a copy if you all wanna see it.
What
or we
schedule?
can- you don't have it in the
Oh.
schedule. I'll just talk about it, but if you want me to go run 5 copies of this, I can, again. So we had, Derek and I, as staff, had sat down and came up with a 5-year Greenway and Trails plan. And it included taking all the future sections that had been envisioned and talked about and categorizing them. It kind of was updating one that had been created before, updating it with all current information. But it also included putting in those ongoing maintenance of the trails and ongoing maintenance of the loop, because those were things that we've had money sitting there, but we've not really done a whole lot in the
anything,
past
yeah.
couple of years to address it. So one of the things that I just wanted, and then PRG kind of did their priority, and they weren't too far off from us. We have a couple of differences, so I wanted to run this by you all and just let you know kind of what Derek and I are doing to move forward on this as staff, taking into consideration what PRG wants to do, but also, you know, internal talks we've had as staff, and wanting to make sure that we're doing what council would like us to do. We've got the Amber Meadows rebuild, which we are hoping we don't need to spend any money on. So the good news there is that we got to the right person at the developer, and he's willing to, he was out there last week, and he's willing to do something about it.
Mitigate that.
Here's what he said. He said that, both the supervisor and the guy that Robert and I met with, they both agreed that the trail was awful and needed a lot of work. They're gonna try to get some bids on their end and to bring in the material to fix it. They're also gonna consider our quote from Blue Ridge Trail. They also talked about using some of his mitigation trees at the front to act as some blockades to keep vehicles from coming down the path. So I think that's really positive.
Okay, yes, we're excited about that. So that's the Amber Meadows rebuild. The next thing that was on both of our priority lists was to make progress on what we're calling the town hall trail back here. You all had set aside $65,000. I don't think we're gonna need all that for that trail. So we can use that then to carry over to some of these other trails, because it's all in that capital projects budget, which is sort of why I don't think you need to add any more money there this year. Let us move along, let us get finished with this, and then we may come
When will that
back.
break ground, do you think?
This summer. I talked to the surveyor yesterday. He's gonna put together a quote of coming out to survey the easement for us, and we already have a quote from Blue Ridge Trails to actually build the trail. So the steps would be to get the surveyor to survey the easement so we know for sure where it is. And then I'll need to, I guess here's a question I have for you. Since you all have put this money into the capital project, as interim administrator, can I just go ahead, once I get this quote from the surveyor, I can go ahead and sign the contract and we can move forward, right?
I
don't
think
need.
so, I think we've
any-
all decided this is what we're doing.
That we're
the money's
just-
there, right?
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
So he's
Yeah.
the same surveyor we've worked with, he's been
Yeah.
around forever. So we'll do that. Then we'll get Blue Ridge Trails to come out there. We'll walk, any of you who want, but we did that Town Hall Trail walk once already. So he'll go out there and he'll mark the trail and actually build it.
But stop on that one, because, and I do remember, maybe someone else does, my mind's not as much as it used to be. Used to go in and out, and Laney had some things that if we come into the church property back here, we wouldn't be knocking some of these big trees down. So that may be something we need to look at. The church said to him anyway, that they were fine coming in because it was going to be Miranda
Okay.
instead of.
Yeah.
So-
No, I think he
Yeah, if I
was
remember
the
that.
guy
Yeah.
from Blue
Yeah.
Ridge, when we
Yeah.
walked it, Chris, they're avoiding anything that's,
Yes, they would not want to be knocking.
and
down
they're
large
doing
trees.
a lot of the cleanup that's back in there too, correct? Getting rid
Yes.
of the trash in that
So the
Yes.
process.
surveyor comes first and says, this is where it
The
is
easement
per
is.
your
Easements
easement.
are.
And then we can talk about tweaking it. And
Well,
then we have to
Yeah.
change the
Yeah.
easement.
Blue Ridge
Yeah.
comes through and figures out a path through that, within that easement.
And if they can't, then we could
Then
talk
we
about.
talk to the
Yes.
church
Yeah.
about tweaking it.
He'll tag the big trees that are
Yes.
over what's our ordinance
And we're trying to
12.
save them. I think
Yes.
we talked to them, but that's what I remember.
Yeah. This Blue Ridge Trails guy was,
Yeah.
really cognizant of all of that.
Okay,
Oh.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
excuse the pun, but it sounds like we're on the right path.
Ah!
So bad.
Okay,
We are on
now,
And I'm leaving now.
Bum.
as far as beginning and ending though, what we would do is, for the time being, we would start it like, sort of right next to the town hall trail, the town hall property, because we're not quite sure what that
Path
property's
to
gonna look
nowhere.
like. Right, so we just sort of start at the end, we build the trail, and then down here I wanna explain to you, when we walked the trail with Blue Ridge and the PRG people, I don't know if all of you have heard this or not, but the original quote we got was very high because the trail went through wetlands and conservation
Yeah.
area, and we were gonna have to
Lots
build
of
bridges.
Yeah.
The Blue Ridge Trail guy was like, you could do this and this and this, and you could avoid building all those bridges.
Oh, great.
So we have been, Laura and Derek and I have been talking with Toll Brothers, and they are actually agreeable to moving the easement so that we don't have to go through all that wetlands, and it would make more sense. So their surveyors are actually redrawing, or engineers are redrawing the plans, the plat right now to come back to us. It would need to come back through you all just for one last look.
And where does that end up at by
It would
the
end up in the cul-de-sac of Golden Bell,
cul-de-sac? Okay.
but it would go around the retention pond.
Yeah.
And there's some discussion about, there's a pocket park that's supposed to be in there, and there's a discussion about possibly moving that because it's in kind of a dumb location right now. So they want to move that. So they're just going to redraw the whole thing, bring it back through Laura, we'll show you all, and then, but it should be
So
just
that's
a-
where we're saving a lot of the cost. of the project.
Yes, we
Bridges were
do
real
save
expensive.
a
Yeah.
lot of cost there. So in order to make progress though, we're going to start at the beginning and an end point, but then we may do the two tips of it
Yeah.
later on.
Well, as you get all this figured out,
Figure it
then you
out.
can
But at least we're
start.
making progress.
Yeah.
Good.
And it would be
Good plan.
just like the Tullamore Trail surface.
Perfect.
And now, okay, so the other update to let you know is about Innisbrook, which is a very high priority of PRG. But we do know where the easement is for Innisbrook, and we have all that paperwork. And I've talked to the HOA there, and they are having a meeting on August 26th of the HOA where they are going to talk as a community, and I guess they have to vote on whether or not they want to move the easement inside the fence.
Are we sending anyone from our parks or someone like that to go and talk other than to just have the HOA present it?
We can,
I think we need to, because I think that
At least to sit there and answer questions.
right, because I think facts matter. At the end of the day, facts matter, and if you have someone who's, because I think in the past, it's gotten, the message
Skewed.
went in, and then all of a sudden, and when other, I'll just leave it at that. I think
Okay.
we should have some sort of representative, whether it's from the Blue Ridge Trail guy or a
Well,
PRG person, and maybe getting ahead of our skis with the Blue Ridge Trail, but
It might be
it
Laura.
wouldn't be Blue Ridge because it'll be a paved trail.
So, and Laura might be the right person.
yeah.
And to Joe's point, it'd be nice if their HOA had enough information where they could possibly make a decision if they're wanting to that night. and not feel like they missed something.
So
Right.
if we
I think
take
it has to be voted on.
let
though
me
among
ask
the
you this,
residents.
have we talked about, if we take it inside the fence,
Mhm.
okay, which is what I think they're, may look at, is that
Mhm,
correct?
mhm. They're considering.
Considering, okay, we take it inside the fence, how much of that barren land that's sitting there right now do we take over as far as maintenance? Because
Well,
a
we
lot-
wouldn't. I mean, the conversation that I had with the HOA was that we would maintain the paved part of the trail and they would maintain
Okay,
up
so
to
there's
the
the-
edges.
Good, no maintenance then, good, outside of the,
Right, because there's nothing in the easement agreement that says we would maintain any more than just our
But,
paved
but we
trail.
do need to make it clear, it's not gonna be like their next door neighbors where the developer put all those trees in meandering area. It's
They
just gonna
would
be a
have to
meandering
add those
path,
things.
yes.
Unless we wanted to come in as an HOA and
And
partner
beautify
up with
it,
the village.
beautify it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Actually, someone, believe it or not, the reason I asked about that inside there, because I think someone from the tennis group came to me and was proposing that they do a one-story indoor tennis facility. Apparently tennis is very big in that area there, and then dig down and have 2 levels, where it's only 1 level, but it's, no, it was interesting because the club they were gonna propose it to the club corps to see if that was an investment that was, having an indoor facility, but it's really 2 levels, but it's dug down and you're only seeing, and it goes with the house. I know that's right in your backyard, but I just wanna let you know, full disclosure, everybody comes with ideas are free.
Well, right. To continue the Innisbrook discussion, part of the problem is talk about a path to nowhere. The Innisbrook Trail will just be,
Have to know
for the
where-
time being, an internal trail because Derek has talked to the homeowner of the land between the
Oh.
preserve and Innisbrook, and he does not have any desire to have his land, anything done on his land. Nothing, nothing, nothing. He was very clear.
Do we know who owns the land between Innisbrook's property and that house that's like overgrown and the weeds are taller than I am?
I think he lives in Innisbrook.
Wait,
If you said his name, Garvey?
That little skinny piece?
wait, there's a skinny piece. Are
So
we
like
talking?
if you drive down Saddle
Mm-hmm.
and you've got 1 house, 2 houses, and there's undeveloped, there's a lot there.
Oh, no.
No. If you're looking at the entrance of Innisbrook, you've got tennis
left.
court,
Uh-huh.
you've got empty field, then you've got a little sliver that is, the weeds are really tall.
It's his property.
And
That's
then-
his property.
It's-
Oh.
Do we not have code that needs to be
You
mowed?
sure do,
It's terrible.
yeah.
Huh.
It's terrible. Like, it's really high. Like,
I haven't
Well, we
like,
looked
if
at
it
that
was
property.
mowed,
We
like,
looked
if
at
it was
that
mowed,
property.
you could, scurry across there.
Um,
But it's not. Like, it's
Yeah.
really bad.
I will ask about the, I will ask
If his
about
property
that.
butts up to Innisbrook's common area,
I
then,
believe it does, there's no other
then that
homeowner in
needs to
there.
be.
Yeah.
Okay.
It did,
'Cause
it
it's
did. When we
crazy
looked at
high.
it, I believe it did. We
He
looked at
owns
that.
like, the lots go like front, behind.
village.
Like there's like 3
Yes.
lot parcel numbers.
Yes.
Landlocked?
Yes.
Well, yes, but he owns all 3.
Yeah,
So-
Yeah, but they're behind. They're not.
They're-
in
Right,
front.
they
Right.
make 3 lots out
But
of it.
there's
Indeed.
like a sliver, and I don't know if it's like a utility easement because there's a big.
I think there's a
pole there.
utility easement on the other side, which
We need to
is
look
where
because it.
I thought that
I
that's
got it.
where
I
we
got it
get
down.
back, that's how we get behind, is that if you look at those power lines that go there, that's where, because you're not gonna get on the private property and
Derek
then
and
the
I looked
saddle.
at it.
You did?
Yeah, the properties butt up to each other. There's no.
There's gotta be an easement, there's telephone poles that go right through there.
There's an easement, but if I'm not mistaken,
It's on
I've
their
never
property.
actually walked it, but if I'm not mistaken, because it's all horse properties around there, there's fences that tie together and.
But they butt up because Derek and I pulled the GIS map to look at it, and so the utility, there may be easements, but it's on their property, and so there's no like
on the
buffer.
property line.
But you can go down underneath the lines.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I don't know. Derek and I looked at it, and it's like
Yeah.
you're gonna have to go and get permission from
It's
each
a
property
separate
owner.
easement. In other words, like with what I'm dealing with over here,
Right,
even though there's a power line,
Mike?
Time Warner was looking for a better path, and they're thinking about using that, but they don't get to just join in because there's already an easement. That easement belongs to the power company, so they have to get a separate easement, which I'd have to sign off on. and the power company to have to sign off on.
Oh,
So it's not just a matter of
okay,
piggybacking
okay.
something
But
else.
can we get the power company to sign off on the easement for a path under it?
You might be able to, but then you gotta get the property owners too.
Yeah, because it's on their property.
Yeah,
Like,
they
the easement's
They
on their
signed off
property.
on the power company, they didn't
Yeah.
sign off on everyone the power company wants to invite to
Correct.
the party, you know what I mean?
Correct. Because there's no buffer between,
Right.
like, there's a lot of buffers, like preserve and behind, but
So you're saying that the path is really on the other side,
Yeah.
is where it is, okay.
So like Time Warner,
That's
they're,
still gonna run into his
in
property.
my situation, rather than deal with all that, they're willing to dig 300 more feet of line, which
Right.
is expensive, but they don't wanna deal with
Right.
the easement part of it, so.
So what happens if
Yeah.
Marvin ever gets widened there? That's gonna cut into his tree right there anyway, right?
oh yeah. Oh, that'll be his whole front yard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Innisbrook is, for the time being, is on hold until after we see what the HOA wants to do. But then once the HOA comes back to us, then we would need to see what it would cost to pave that. And we could either potentially use some of the 65,000 that's already in there, or we may have to come back.
I thought
Yeah,
that project
that
was
one's
under
paid.
15,000, it was like 14,000, I remember, as far as the
Yeah,
numbers.
there's-
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
It's 1,750 feet, so whatever it costs.
This one's
to pave-
natural, but that one's paved.
That's paved, yeah, and I don't know what it costs to pave.
And so is
but-
Tullamore right next to it.
That number's
Or
probably
is it preserved?
pretty
Preserved.
accurate.
Yeah.
So this is the end of the loop now, okay?
Mhm.
Remember, it's a spoke.
Right,
It's a
right.
C.
Spoke, you know,
It's a-
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
It's a C.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so that's where we are in Innisbrook. And the next thing, and this is where we were in a little bit of disagreement with PRG, is I guess they thought that there was a problem with Tullamore Phase 2 because we're on the hook to do more work in Tullamore. They thought there was a problem with the retention pond and the wetness of the ground and different things like that. So what we decided to do was just have our engineer go out there and look at it. So the engineer met Derek out there the other day, and they think it's fine. They said it's just natural ground wetness, that it's not a problem. We used up most of our contract with the surveyor, which was supposed to include Phase 2 when we had to do additional work in Phase 1 before my time. So we probably need to extend his contract, which we will, and then get him to go out there and mark the easement in Phase 2 and see if that is indeed where Derek was thinking that trail would continue and the Blue Ridge
Do you
Trail.
have money for that, or do you need money?
No, I think we have money for that right now. We'll just keep using this same money and.
Just
So-
make sure we
till
check
use
it with water, because that was really, really bad. So, you know, before we build the trail, I wanna make sure it's not in a wetland where you can't use the trail.
That's
Yes,
what we did.
that's what the engineer was out there
Okay.
with us, and then Blue Ridge Trails will come out behind him, so
So I think it
yes.
was Blue Ridge Trails that was concerned about it a lot more than, if the engineer's saying it's fine, but Blue
Yeah,
Ridge
was it
Trail had
them or
issues.
was
Of
it
Phase 2?
homeowners?
Well, when we
was-
walked Phase 2, I was
Okay.
there with him when I went to
Okay.
look at the aggregate that they'd put down.
Mhm.
Then we continued on, and I think he had a concern.
Blue
from-
Ridge?
Blue
Well,
Ridge.
okay,
It's
so
my
what we-
understanding.
So then we might have to move the trail, which is what the surveyor was talking to me about, but the thing was, PRG thought it was because there was a problem with the retention pond, and the retention
Oh,
pond is
with
fine.
leaking.
Okay.
Yeah, wasn't
So
that,
it's-
weren't they saying it was like leaking or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the retention pond though is fine, it's natural wetness, so if we need to move it, it's,
Then we can move it.
we can move it. We
Okay.
just have to, and what the surveyor highly recommended is that we move quickly on the rest of this, because he said we wanna do this before the developer turns it over to the HOA.
Mhm.
He said, you wanna get all this done while the developer's
And
there.
what Joe just touched on, I guess the trail builder needs to be okay with it,
Yeah.
Yes,
because he's the one that, they may not have a warranty per se, but he's the one that's.
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll know if it,
We'll
and
call if
then
it's,
whatever happened to that path that required a bridge? I know Lanny had worked on it way back over. Is that just a dead where horses were going to be going
The
on?
one big Chimneys Trail?
Chimneys Trail.
I have been wondering that.
I spent a summer out
That's
there.
next trail.
Oh my gosh. We all
I
did,
just
right?
did that just fall off the.
It's
We built that by
basically,
hand.
The trail in
basically
South
just-
Carolina.
I know. I don't know. I
Somewhat
just
abandoned.
couldn't understand why we were involved in that when it was it South Carolina and it
it's
was.
somewhat abandoned.
Okay, I just
It
want
was
to make
on
It's
sure.
there.
on the list, but it's
We
somewhat,
put chains up across the bridges, because the bridges, they told us were not safe, and we didn't wanna have a horse go over it, so we put
Oh, wow.
That's
I haven't been back
And
there.
that's after we hauled
that-
telephone poles in by hand.
Is that-
Yeah, we did that, God, that was like 2
That's
years, I almost
Marvin.
killed
Is that in
myself.
Marvin?
No,
No, it's in the,
Unincorporated.
yeah.
but we have
Oh,
easements.
just trying to bring in the
At that
neighbors.
time, we were all steam ahead on trails. We were building trails.
And we
Anyway.
got
And horses
easements
were
from the
coming.
developer.
Supposedly horses.
We had a
were
horse
coming.
statue coming.
Well, the horses were there. I mean, like I said, my daughter's old house was right on
Back there.
basically the trail, and I used to see, 10, 12 horses. So to me, I said, we got a trail, it's not in Marvin, that is basically being used by a private entity to do
With
their
money.
their money.
And we cleared it out for them.
And we
And we
cleared it out
cleaned
for
it
them.
out for them, right, right. And remember, well, we'll get into it, but didn't want to use any equipment that was motorized, so we had to use all hand stuff.
I had a bobcat I was willing to take.
I know, and
But
I'm like,
instead, we're out there with axes and Pulaski tools.
I feel
That
like
sounds
back in the
terrible.
Boy Scouts.
That sounds terrible. Okay, so
Alright.
everything that they wanna do this year, we've got enough money for.
Yeah.
Potentially, yes. We might need a little
That's
bit
right.
more, but I don't know enough yet.
Okay.
Okay, there's two more things that we are on the hook for, which we need to consider, if not this year, then probably next year. One of them would be Tullamore Phase 3. There's one more section to Tullamore that we're responsible
That
for.
connects to the Amber Meadows, yes.
Or somewhere over
Yeah,
there.
let's get Amber Meadows
Yes.
finished first and
This is
stuff
further
before
down the
we're,
list.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other one is, are you all aware, I can't remember if I mentioned it in a meeting with you all or not, the internal preserve trail that
Yes.
we're responsible for?
Yes.
Do you know about that? Okay,
I
so,
didn't
miss
I
that.
do, yeah, there is a,
So the
There is
HOA is
a
not
trail.
responsible for that.
no, we are,
Well, we're slow.
there
Chop, chop.
is a trail, this is the preserve, and, there is a trail inside the preserve. It's this yellow line,
Wow.
it starts, like, this is a pocket park inside the preserve, and there is a trail like that goes and connects to our trail over here. But
You
the
signed off
end's
on all the
right
yellow?
here. Imagine
that.
You all
Who was the planner on that?
agreed with that.
Not you all, I wasn't
Bring
here.
that planner back.
So,
Holy
and
God.
their neighborhood knows about it, their developer knows about it, they know that it's Marvin's responsibility, so we can't let it go forever, because we're gonna start.
You were there.
So that would
Joe, when did you
be
go?
a future.
Just blame it on
after
me.
we get-
Yeah, I don't think we have room in the budget this year.
It's giving out.
Yeah.
This trail and that trail.
Christina did.
There's Christina.
But you're right, we need to think about it in the next.
Mhm, in the next budget cycle,
And we,
definitely.
and if we have a surplus of POW, we can use POW
Yeah.
for,
Yes.
for trails.
Yes,
Yes.
and then maybe a year, maybe a year,
Maybe a
you're
year
not
we
doing
have to,
roads, you're doing,
Well,
That's-
especially
that may
if
be
DOT is gonna do a big chunk next year too, hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think with what's happening with town hall and stuff, obviously the priorities are, I think, in the right order and stuff, and we've done, we've actually gone beyond, I think, of what we thought we would do with the aggregate in the first phase of it.
Yeah.
And so that looks great, I'm sure. It's at least a path where they can walk if they want, and their dogs, or with animals or whatever, but, I mean, there's only so much money in the kitty.
Right.
Correct.
Now, the other thing that we'll be working on
before
this
you get
year.
off of that trail.
Mhm,
That's all ours, all that yellow, right?
mhm.
Are they aware then people from Marvin can,
Mm-hmm.
when we go in through their neighborhood? Because we can help them if they want to,
Mm-hmm.
and give it back to them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what the parking was for, my understanding
There's
too.
no parking in the preserve, there's no parking.
That was, you're thinking that.
Oh, I'm thinking the
Yeah.
Tullamore.
So when we get
Okay.
ready to put a number to that, maybe
Mhm.
we have that conversation with
Yeah.
them. Because remember, you were around for this, Nick, Bridle Path, fought us tooth and nail, they wanted theirs dumped.
Yeah,
Some
Yeah.
communities want it dumped.
yeah,
Some communities don't want a trail that everyone uses cut right
for their
through the
neighborhood,
middle.
yeah.
I think realistically though,
Dump trail
like
on
the
that
one,
grade.
yeah, realistically, like the ones in my neighborhood, you're not gonna get a whole lot of external people to come walking in them, because this
one
is
might be
hard
a
to
little
get to.
different with the town hall corner and all.
Not
It's
being
just a
that far
question,
away.
I guess we involve them, the HOA, when it's
Yeah.
time to actually spend money.
And they don't have a established HOA yet.
No, the developer is still in charge there. So the only other thing that I want to just mention that we'll be doing this year that we're spending money on is, you all have been setting aside money each year for Greenway and Loop maintenance. It's part of the budget, and there's money in this year's budget to go toward that as well. There's currently like $46,000 in there, and then whatever we're gonna add from this year's budget is about, what was the number? 9850, so another $10,000. That's a number that we can use. We're getting quotes from the person who did the paving on the loop to go back out, because we know there are some cracks and things that we need to take care of. So we're gonna use that money to work on those improvements this year, as well as possibly if there's any, if we need any money to do some of the ongoing maintenance on some of the trails, the Tullamore Trail, we would use that money towards that as well.
Did Derek go back to the repair people? Because I know we had like 3 different options for different colored sections.
Yes.
And it was like very confusing and.
Yes, we're in the midst of
Okay.
back and forth with him. He's really busy, and so.
No, that's fine. I just,
Sorry.
because we were all, I know at the last PRG meeting, we were trying to.
No, I mean the construction guy, it's like
Yeah.
catching up with him is
Okay.
hard, so.
And if the numbers that come back from that guy feel high,
Mhm.
let me know, because, you know, I was in the unique position of having to find pavement guys that would do small stuff,
Mhm.
and it's really hard right now.
Mhm.
But I do have some names I can give you.
Oh, okay.
That might not be a bad idea, because I thought those numbers were high, but.
Okay, I didn't
Because-
actually.
But I'm not,
He's
but I've
not
never
competing,
done
right?
it before,
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
the
plus he's
numbers I was
super
getting were
busy,
really
so.
high, but just finding the guys that'll look at small stuff right now. is
It's
so
not a bad
hard.
idea to have a competing quote to make sure that they're not way out of whack.
Who may be willing to do like just repair type work.
Yeah,
Okay. Perfect.
and I didn't use these guys, there's no conflict here, it's just I know the names.
Okay, nope, that would be great, because it couldn't hurt.
Chris,
So,
can
that's
you
the end.
look at adding something to Derek? As I'm looking at the park, I would like to be able to have a goal for him to bring in additional funding from different places. So, you know what I mean? If we give him a goal and he increases it each year, you know, you're doing a good job. But if you don't increase it, the expenses go up, we're gonna get that gap. So just to come up and work with them on what a number would be, you know, to go to the Walmarts of the world and the, you know what I mean, the different people to help. What's that?
Is that you?
Mine's not in that bucket.
Mine's in my purse, but it sounds like my car.
It's a Lexus.
On?
Oh, yes, it's Nick, your car, Nick. Nick! So you want a
Nobody's
goal,
near it.
so Ron, just so I understand.
Somebody
so like
budget.
if we're looking, are you saying like if we're looking at the park revenue here,
Yeah.
you want
So-
him to?
No, it's wrong.
Come.
Oh, it's mine? Oh, it's yours? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that was
It's a
your
great
car.
Lexus.
She's Ron.
God.
Mine's that Bowser question on it.
There it is.
There you go.
Is the guy that you talked to Tarpon, because he was on
Yeah.
my list?
Yes.
Okay.
That's who
Sorry.
actually constructed the rest of the loop,
I had called him about mine, but
and he's just
I didn't
really
use him.
super busy.
He's really nice, but
Mhm.
he's gonna be expensive. They all are, honestly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if it was 15,000 this year, let him work with it, because I don't know what the number would be, but it's just something we want to challenge him to involve the community, right? You know, the public's going to be here, a part of our community, you know, I would like to see her helping us with some of our events and park stuff and things like that.
Well, Chris, and as we get a new administrator in, hopefully that person will be able to have some new, fresh
Yeah, ideas and stuff. I don't know what the number is, but I think it's something we should challenge him for.
Well, I know at one point you all said that I think at the last budget meeting, you all said that to the extent that the park was under, or had additional revenue, that they could spend more on the park things, that if they brought in more revenue, they could do more things at the park with that money, because it was all still working out to be the same budget.
I agree
It
with
could
that.
be able to operate on its own eventually, if we get the right things in there
That
and
would
it
be the
starts
goal.
generating,
Yeah.
that would be the goal,
We
right?
haven't been there though, you know, we've been just trying to pay for expenses and
Right.
whatever, but I think we gotta get that income to Joe's part, different event things and stuff like
Right.
that.
Okay, so now, I'm actually gonna mention something, just in case these numbers change, because as we're sitting here talking, I'm thinking that the same reason why the auditor wanted me to change the way we accounted for engineering,
Yeah?
she may ask me in our budget to change the way we're showing parks, because right now, what happens in our budget is, I just show you guys this
Bottom
net
number.
number.
And that doesn't come into revenue.
Oh, and she,
Right.
We're just not
I
highlighting
need to
it.
split
Oh,
them
you
out.
better, yeah.
So I'm
you have to have a
going
revenue number.
to
I bet you
change
she's
the
gonna make you
budget
do
to
that.
split those
That's
out.
fine, yeah.
So, and I'm going to
Yeah.
change the budget amendment for May 31st to add that. I'm gonna call her today and ask her, and if that's the case, I'm gonna
Slide
slip
that
that
in.
into the other budget amendment that I already gave you,
Yeah.
so that it's corrected for this year as well.
Okay?
Okay, so just be
Yeah.
prepared for that.
How does that affect the bottom line?
Doesn't.
It doesn't.
Right, it's just
It's
how it's
just strictly
seen.
accounting,
Okay,
but I'm thinking now that it's the same issue.
Okay.
And she may not, I'll ask her that.
It's what my mother referred to as the no-show account. She always had no-show money. I go, what's no-show money? It's like, she
No,
knew it was in
just
there, but she
just
just
doesn't show
wasn't,
up
doesn't,
anywhere.
it's not, you know.
I do lots of that.
Well, that's where I always tell my wife to carry emergency money, and I'm like, where was your emergency money? She goes, well, I used that. I go, well, that wasn't an emergency.
That's a slush fund.
Yeah.
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 I was talking to a financial planner recently and I told him about some separate accounts I had created and he goes, yeah, that's envelope accounting, like envelope banking. He said back in the
Oh,
old
that you
days,
just-
everybody,
Yeah, everybody had
when
an envelope
people
for
were in
each
cash.
expense, yeah,
Yeah, but they only
yeah.
spent out of that envelope. He
Yeah,
goes,
I remember
and I was
everything.
like, I remember that.
Food.
That I don't remember, sorry.
Yeah.
But literally, yes, you took your
Yeah, yeah.
paycheck and you put it
Do you
in
even know what
envelopes.
cash is?
And then that's all you had to spend.
Aren't you Bitcoin?
That credit
Good
card?
budgeting.
Aren't you Bitcoin?
Bitcoin, yeah.
How
Okay.
become so anal?
So I will make these, I will flow through these changes and email them back out to you. I'm not sure if it'll be today or Monday. Email them back out to you so you see what it'll look like. And then, do we need the budget work session then on
No.
I think we're
Thursday?
done.
Or can we
No.
just go
I think we're
for,
pretty good.
start the public hearing at 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
You don't have anything else, right?
No, I'm kind of impressed that Ron's okay.
I'm fine.
Wait, say it again.
I am fine.
All right.
Excuse me?
Say it.
I challenge you, and I think you guys did a good job and talk about the interview. I saw that piece from last night.
I caught him up
That
this
person-
morning.
Good.
Person looked pretty good.
Good.
I'm still gonna challenge, and wherever it is to look at the whole package,
Yep.
because we're still a little out of whack there, but that's, outside of that, I think, I've said that a few times.
Perfect.
Fine.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you
Good
for
job, good
your
job. All right.
All right.
input
So I need-
and for your time. Thanks for suggesting that we do this ahead of time.
So we're not doing
Nope.
4 o'clock.
Correct.
Right, you
Okay.
cancel that.
What a shame.
All right, so I need a
We
motion
don't-
then,
Not in order to leave.
I need a motion then to adjourn the special meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks for coming,
Good job,
guys.
everybody.
We finished early.